Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today is Monday, July 14th. It is 7 p.m. and it's time for the Lakewood City Council study session. We have 4 items for discussion tonight. The first one is a joint lodging tax advisory committee. And for that, we'll have a interim city manager, Todd Cross.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor and council members. This is the Joint Lodging Tax Advisory Committee meeting, and I will let you know that we don't have any members of the LTAC who were able to come this evening due to conflicting priorities. We're presenting this to the City Council in July. We're getting ready for our 2026 applications, which will start in August. So just as a reminder, the 7% that the city collects on the lodging tax, 4% of it is for tourism and the other 3% is restricted. So between the 3 and 4%, all 7% can be used for capital, but only 4% can be used for tourism. The Lodging Tax Advisory Committee is comprised of 2 members that represent businesses, and the other 2 members represent entities that receive the lodging tax. Our current representatives, we have one from Comfort Inn Suites, Jarnell Singh, DJ Wilkins from Best Western Lakewood, and on the side that represents the businesses authorized to receive the lodging tax is Linda Smith from the Lakewood Chamber of Commerce and Dean Burke from Travel Tacoma and Pierce County. So one of the roles for the LTAC is to make the recommendation to the City Council in regard to how the taxes are used. So for that, we'll start with the application process for 2025 for the 2026 grant awards. So on Monday, July 28th, we'll open up the application period. On August 15th, we'll have the notification. We'll ask for their notification of intent to apply. And the reason why we do that is just so that we can follow the application that come through, whether they're dropped off at the front counter or submitted electronically. On August 18th, the applications will be due. On September 8th, the applications will compile those and submit those to the LTAC. And then the applicants will present their programs on September 19th. Then we'll follow the City Council process with adoption on November 17th, and then the contracts will be in place in January of 2026. So as you know, we also have a committed capital use of their 3% restricted capital, and that is for the McGavick Center lease, and that is $101,850. Annually, that comes right off the top because we're committed for that. Our last payment is in June 2026. In terms of how much we anticipate will be available for the 2026 grant applications, that amount is $4.1 million, of which about $3 million can be used for the capital, must be used for capital, and for the unrestricted, which means it can be used for tourism, is 1.1 million. But all of that amount, as I mentioned, could be used for a capital project based on whatever City Council desires. So that concludes my presentation.
Okay, Mr. Branstetter.
Well, I appreciate the presentation, the summary of data and the process. Deputy Mayor, I would ask that the joint meeting between the council and the LTAC be rescheduled, because the piece of that meeting that is actually more beneficial to us is when we can have some discussions about looking at how the LTAC would be used and what sort of things goes on, and hearing their thoughts about what's going on. And so I think it's unfortunate that none of the 5 members were able to be here today, but I think there is some value to having a joint meeting, and at some point in time I think we should look to try to get it rescheduled to sort of see, because there are various insights that we can draw from our conversations with them that uh, um, go beyond the actual factual data that deals with the finances of it. So that would be my only piece of feedback for this evening.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I agree, because I would like to know from LTAC, and so we can discuss as a body if this 4%, 3% split is necessary anymore. We've had this for a long, long time. If the whole thing can be used for capital, then why do we do this capital set aside? Were we worried that, you know, that the operational side would take too long? I think it unnecessarily inhibits us. So and now that we're done with the McGavick side, I think maybe it's time to have that discussion. Because I don't know that I've ever quite understood why we do it that way, other than to protect the capital side. And I think for a long time, I thought that was a great idea. And now I'm like, well, if we can do the whole thing on capital, and I mean, we've discussed the barns, the H barn renovation, which would take up more than the 3%, right? So I would like to have that discussion, but I agree. I think they at least a few of them need to be here.
Mr. Marcel.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Interim City Manager. I had a question about this 3%, 4% split. From what I saw in the packet, the 3% is restricted to attractions that serve a minimum of 1 million visitors a year. Do we have anything that we have 1 million visitors a year that we serve, or does that just mean, hey, you know, in Pierce County, if we count all of that, these people might be interested in coming to our stuff? How does that work?
Well, the last time that we looked at it, the H barn was one where we thought that there could be 1 million visitors coming to the site over a period of a year. Following that discussion, there was the talk about the downtown park, and that could be another item that could be funded with the lodging tax. In terms of the history of that 3% and the 4%, the 3%, it has been imposed by the city council. So there's nothing in state law that says we're required to put the 3% aside. The way that we currently have it set up, it provides some flexibility should the city council want to fund tourism.
Okay, thank you. So that's a restriction we've put on ourselves, that
Yes.
we have the ability to make changes through code amendments.
Yes, and I included that in the packet. It's the lodging tax funding guidelines, and this was adopted by the city council, imposed by the city council and adopted by the council.
Great, thank you.
2015, yes.
Any other questions? Okay, is there a deadline to have these in?
For the application itself, if the city council would like to have the joint meeting rescheduled, we'll just work it on our calendar and try to get that done before the application starts. So
Okay.
we'll work with city clerk.
And that sounds like what's being requested.
Yes,
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
thank you.
Are there any other questions? Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. The next, what is going on? with my throat? Next on our agenda is a review for the second quarter police report. And for that, we have our Chief of Police, Mr. Patrick Smith. We speeded it up because we didn't want you to be here till midnight.
Hey, good evening, Deputy Mayor and members of the City Council. Today I'll be going over the second quarter police report. As you can see on our chart here, as far as our calls for service, we remain pretty much static all the way through. We're consistent with 2024 in that almost right on the numbers, except we're approximately 2.9% higher as it relates to our calls for service. Our officers were able to field to date 24,840 calls for service. So far this year, our arrest numbers are up, except in the area of felonies where we're down 6.9%. Most of this is due to, as you know, the changes in the law, changing some laws from felony to misdemeanor or gross misdemeanor. If you'll notice, our gross misdemeanors are tremendously higher at 93.8%. Our misdemeanor arrests are up 7.9%, and our warrant arrests are up 16.1%, for an overall increase in arrest of 8.1%. So our officers are out there doing their job on a daily basis. You'll see a steady increase in our year-to-date comparable numbers from 2023 to 2024, and then again to 2025, as we have over time added more officers to our ranks to address the calls for service and also get to calls in a timely manner to reduce our response to calls for service. Our crimes against persons, they're down in all areas. This is one time that our aggravated assaults are down 12.7%. Our simple assaults down 12%. So far this year in homicides, we're very blessed and thankful to show that we've had no homicides in the city of Lakewood so far this year. Our robberies are down 33.3%, and our sex crimes are down 19.1% for an overall reduction of 13.7%. Our crimes against property and society. So far, we're down in all areas except for one, and that's in our larceny, and I'll get to that in one moment. Our burglaries are down 41%. Our fraud is down 21.3%. Our larceny is up. It's up 8%, and that's because we've made substantial efforts in this area as it relates to our various crimes and our enforcement measures that we've been doing in our Lakewood Town Center, and also assigning 2 officers there on a daily basis to address crimes within the Lakewood Town Center. Our motor vehicle theft, we continue to show a substantial reduction from where we were in 2023. We're down 59.4%. Our stolen property is down 21.4%, and our stolen property is down 4.8%, and that's our vandalism is down 21%. And our gun law violations, we show up 25.6% and an overall reduction of 16.1%. If you look at our comparison year to date over in the far right at the bottom, you'll see a steady decline in our crime, almost 2,000 crimes less than 2023. We show a reduction in 2024, and this is our largest reduction year to date. Our pursuit numbers are finally coming in alignment. The 5-year trend to your left shows just the changes and when they occurred, the changes in the law, the yellow being our eludes, and the red being our pursuits. Recently, we managed to bring those significantly down, and we start to match our pursuits to our eludes. And I think that they should come down just a little bit more, and we'll be doing fine. Our eludes are down 55.6%, but our pursuits are up about 30%, trying to keep things within alignment. Our shots fired in the community is down significantly, 44.6%. We keep track of this so that anytime rounds are fired in the community, it is significant interest to all of the community members. Our motor vehicle theft is one of the areas that's been our most trickiest, but also one that we saw reason to make significant changes. And this is on here so that you guys can see the money that you invested to in deterrent measures for our officers is paid off significantly. If you look at our year-to-date numbers from 2023 as compared to today, we went from upper triple digits down to double digits in 2025. It's a lot of victims in between. Our collision numbers, this is something that we are continuously putting a lot of effort into to bring this down. As you can see, we've shown steady decline since 2023 into 2024, and then again into 2025 with a 7.6% decrease overall. Our traffic numbers are something that we are constantly working on with several emphasis details so that we can get our officers out there to address speed within the community. This is a summary of our overall crime. Significantly, we show crime reduction in all areas of crime except for larceny, where we are having significant focused arrest in our Lakewood Town Center. And our overall numbers as it relates to our officers' enforcement is significantly higher, especially in our number of arrests. And so our officers are working tremendously hard to make sure that we're addressing crime as it occurred, we're addressing calls for service, and we're addressing things as they occur within the community. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Are there any questions? Mr. Larcella.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Chief. Good news across the board, as it has been for the last couple of quarters. Crime is down, arrests are up. That's a sign that things are working well. Around the community, when we talk to folks, there's still the opinion from a number of folks that crime is still a top concern for them. How do we help to get communications out there that reflect this data so that people understand that they are safer than they were a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago?
So communication is one of the things that we've been trying to work significantly on. We put out our daily information, or weekly information to the community to let them know where we are. We release everything on our website so that the community can see what we're doing, where we are, and what's happening within the community. So far, we've placed the officers directly in the Lakewood Town Center on a permanent basis as a regular assignment. We've gotten a lot of very positive feedback and traction from having officers there and changing the course, and people are starting to feel a little bit more safer in the town center and shopping within the city. And I think the important thing is that we get the numbers out to the various parts of the community when we go to the dessert in the driveway, taking our stats with us, taking this information and showing the community what we're doing. If you look at our numbers from 2023, we've come a very, very long way as far as reducing crime within the community and addressing things as they occur. And so I guess just more communication externally to address. It's one thing to address the fear or feeling of crime when it's not occurring.
Mr. Branstetter.
Yeah, thank you, Chief. On your slide that relates to arrests. And we show that we're making, we got an uptick in arrests that we're making. That it appears to, be there, that it's primarily in the area of, biggest percentage gain was in gross misdemeanors, and you mentioned that that was somewhat to do with some former felonies are now gross misdemeanors, and so we're seeing that mix. But which crimes are those that you're referring to when you say that they moved from being felonies to being gross misdemeanors?
A number of our narcotics crimes were moved from being felony arrest to gross misdemeanor or misdemeanor arrest. And so as a result, we make less felony arrest in that area and more in the gross misdemeanor or misdemeanor arrest.
So with that change, does that also make a change in which court has jurisdiction over
Yes.
dealing with those? And so if we were to look at the column that's not departmental, but that is the next column over, about how many of these arrests are resulting in successful prosecutions or diversions from prosecutions and that have a positive result.
So I try to stay in my lane. My lane is arrest and follow through to prosecution. However, I don't control the courts and I don't keep track of their numbers of what they do with the various cases. And so if there's a violation of the law, we're going to continue to make that arrest, whether the courts decide to prosecute or not. That's their arena, and we don't have any control in what happens in the court.
So I guess I'd ask your perception, and are you also seeing that now that certain crimes are gross misdemeanors, are you arresting repeat offenders more frequently than you did when they were felonies?
Well, I'm not sure how many are repeat offenders in the numbers. That's not necessarily something that we track here. We see them when they come through and we know that they are repeat offenders, but as far as tracking repeat offenders in our numbers, we simply don't do that.
Mm-hmm. And then on your shots fired slide, we're showing fewer instances of that being reported. That I think that this is one of those areas that in Mr. Lauricella's question about how do people feel, okay, that there are a lot of instances that we've had that particularly some of them that are related into parks and that have influenced people's behavior to the extent that they either do not go or allow their children to go to parks on weekends and things to do that. And I know that we've been informed that you were initiating some proactive things to have presence and some more on-site enforcement of things in parks, which I think is an area in the city that there was some concern about doing that. And most of this problem just sort of came up in the last month of the second quarter, and this is a second quarter report. But could you just sort of summarize as we're transitioning from second quarter into third quarter, what strategy changes and policy changes you've put in effect to make parks safer?
So the thing is, we did have one mass shooting within the park where there were 7 people shot. In my mind, that changes everything and it changes what we do. We changes how we operate, and we should make sure that that doesn't happen again in our city. And so what we've done so far is to institute more or less a summer plan when we have summer weather, simply like we do right now. We're in the summertime, kids are out of school, is to make sure that our parks are safe. During the weekends, we have officers that are assigned specifically to the parks so that they can roam from area to area to make sure that our parks are safe, and that as there are crowds, we are removing vehicles that are illegally parked. We're directing the traffic as it comes through, and we're showing a presence through the various picnic areas within the parks so that we can make sure that if you're coming to a Lakewood Park, we're discouraging those people who may cause a problem. We're discouraging them to coming and encouraging them to leave earlier than they normally would. We want to make sure that our parks are closed when they're supposed to be closed and closing within a timely manner. And we want to do everything that we can to address the many issues that we see or have seen within our parks. As it relates to the shots fired, you can see that our numbers have been cut in half since 2023, and then till today. And our officers will continue to work in those areas to make sure that we always have a presence in our parks, especially early on for the summer. I think that one caught us because it wasn't quite summer. It just happened to be a very warm day, and folks were out and enjoying the parks as they should. And so it's our goal, as I said, to make sure that this doesn't happen again in our city. That was a changing day for us.
So, again, following up on Mr. Lauricella's theme, is there anything that you would suggest to us as a council, or that you think as a council we should do to provide you a tool or a policy that would help with that? And is there something that we can do with citywide that would, just in terms of communicating with the public around safety, to do that, and to include even what to do if you're near an incident that is developing?
Certainly stay in communication with us, but I think the plan that we have has sparked a number of conversations to allow the police department, our park services, to work more closely together to make sure that things are happening within our parks. Not only has the police department deployed to the park, but so has our parks department. We've had calls between the parks, myself, and also the interim or city manager, so that we can make sure that we're addressing any loose ends within the parks. And so we want to make sure that our citizens know that we're doing everything we can to address all of the issues within the park.
Well, I do think that certainly some citizens have communicated to me that they have noticed the increased presence. Okay, and that they appreciate it. There are others, again, who are practicing park avoidance on certain days. But in order for you to institute the focus that you have, what other areas have you had to slightly lower priority of in order to do that and create a priority of focusing on parks on weekends or hot days?
So we have not diminished services anywhere. What we did is we had to implement additional services on an overtime basis for officers to be in the parks to make sure that those areas can be covered full-time.
Okay, and you either did it very quickly or skipped over the slides in your presentation about fireworks.
I haven't gotten to that yet.
Oh, okay, so we're just having questions on the things before fireworks. Okay,
Oh.
then I'm good.
Alright. And so, just the last thing is, I'm not sure, was there another question?
There was.
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to make a comment. These are the best numbers we have ever had. In any number of areas, and it may be even, certainly in burglaries, I think in robberies, and motor vehicle theft. So the turnaround in motor vehicle theft has been incredible. And I know numbers are dropping all over the place, but these are our numbers and they're great. And I just want to express my appreciation to you and to your folks in the police department for a job well done.
I think that the city of Lakewood had some of the best numbers in the state, if not the best numbers in the state as it relates to the quick recovery and decline of stolen vehicles. Our numbers were, at the end of the year, were at 69% reduction. And as you can see, they're still at a reduction of 59%. So it's one of the areas that we continue to focus on. And I think it's been key to preventing a number of other crimes within the city. One of the things that I handed you guys is our Chief's Daily Report. And this tells you our crime numbers year to date as of today as to where we are. And as you can see, the numbers show a continued decline in our overall crime. It's now down 18% for total persons crime and 20% for property crime. And we're down 44% in our CAD calls. So I can't thank our officers enough for the hard work that they do out there to make sure that they're responding to calls in a timely manner and addressing crime when it occurs and being available to the citizens when they call.
Councilmember Bell.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Chief. I agree with my fellow council members that these are the best numbers that we've seen in a while, and it is year after year. And it would be great for our residents to know that is happening. And I think that you guys are making some really concerted efforts. Your social is very active and up. The partnerships of putting people like Captain Johnson and the captain, I don't know your official title, I'm sorry. It was in the video with the fire department about fireworks, things like that, stuff like that, getting all of that out, really creating that human relationship with our residents, I think is also definitely contributing to our numbers going down. So I appreciate that from your guys' end. I would love to see something like a coffee with the chief where you bring more staff in. It's just a very casual, no agenda type of get-togethers that happen occasionally, maybe, twice a year, quarterly, something like that. I don't know. Those I think are really beneficial for our residents and our community to get to know you and really create that bond, not just with you, Chief, but like I said, with the rest of the staff. So I appreciate all that you're doing. And I think that it's getting better each and every day. So thank you.
Thank you.
I would just piggyback onto that. At one point, they had a program where they had cocoa with the cop. And the people came to the station and they got great turnout. So that may be something that you can bring the community back in at some point.
Yes, definitely. Our last one was right here at the Starbucks, and it was very well attended.
Yeah. I just have the collision are down. What
Yeah.
was what is the major, or are there a common cause of collisions in that area?
The issue that we've had with collisions is just speed.
Speeding?
Speed within the city has gone up. It's something that we are addressing. We're down 7.6%, but You know, our officers are writing a number of tickets each day. But we are also receiving a number of calls from citizens of come to our neighborhood, come to this neighborhood. And we're getting around as fast as we can to address the speed that we're seeing within the city.
Thank you.
So I think this is our Lakewood fireworks analysis. This pretty much goes over yearly history, and it goes all the way back to 2016. And this is just to give you a quick overview of the calls for service that came in related to fireworks. We generally start hearing fireworks on the 3rd, so we track them from the 3rd to the 5th, so that we can see the total number of calls for service, those related to fireworks, et cetera. Considering our fire, we allow fireworks within the city, and it's generally only one day or so, a couple of days during the holiday weekend. For the most part, I think it's just one of those things that we kind of deal with during that time frame. And this shows our calls for service again on a more broken down scale as it relates to 2025. And it shows the various points as it relates to the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th, where we definitely track those calls related to fireworks.
Are there any questions?
On here, we just also included one related to the fire department and the fire department's calls for service.
Mr. Branstetter?
Thank you, Chief. I see that there, you know, in our ordinance, fireworks are permissible only on the 4th. But yet most of the calls for service, that's the busiest day for calls for service, and maybe that's why they're there. But what do people complain about on the 4th?
So, we get calls for service related to fireworks and all sorts of noise. I understand, many of them, while it's a yearly event, it's one that does have an impact on, animals and things of that nature. But we as citizens know that it's lawful within the city, during this time frame. And we know what time of year it's coming. We know what it's leading up to. But, you know, we still get those calls for service related to fireworks.
And then could you define what the canceled
So,
column refers to?
so
Right.
the cancel calls are the calls that we receive. However, by the time we're able to drive from one side of the city or one place in the city to another, they'll do their fireworks and leave. And so the call will be canceled, or it'll be canceled by the time we get there, because they only have a small amount of fireworks and they'll do them and leave. And they call us canceled.
So is there a direct correlation between canceled calls and online reports, in that the numbers are identical, or is that coincidence?
No, some we do online reports, and some are just gone before we have a chance to respond. So they'll take online reports during that time frame to minimize the calls for service, because the fireworks are legal during that time frame. So basically what we have is a noise complaint. And it's not much we can do with legal fireworks during the time frame on the Fourth.
I guess that if I was to be looking at this chart and I was, over the past, 2 years, maybe 3 years, in working with South Sound 911, we've really been encouraging people, if you have a fireworks issue, do an online report that, but then we have, what looks like, if you do an online report, it just goes into the cancel column. Is that still is that still what we want to tell people to do? Or is there some definition about how serious of a complaint you have that you should not do it online and should do it in a way that is more likely to get a quicker response?
Well, considering fireworks are legal during that time frame, it's probably preferable that they do an online report. If there's a need for an officer to respond, then our officers will respond to whatever calls for service that are needed.
And you have any insight from colleagues about, are our numbers similar to what other jurisdictions are seeing, to include even the jurisdictions that have total bans on fireworks?
So I've not correlated our numbers as a comparison to other jurisdictions. Many of them they don't have a time frame for their fireworks because they don't allow them in their city, whereas we do. And so we can go back and see what others are seeing, but right now, all we have are our own numbers.
Well, as a council, we get some citizens every year that highlight the fact that Tacoma and in Steilacoom particularly, because their neighboring municipalities have in their codes no allowed times for fireworks. That's not to say that there's no one in those jurisdictions that are setting off fireworks. It's just that they've gotten to a point of where there's going on off, and I don't know that those jurisdictions end up with a lot of enforcement actions any different than you do. But it goes back to the question of most of the people who would rather that there not be fireworks going on are either their issues are either safety or noise. Okay, and that maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago, we got some feedback of where we actually had a drone go up and take pictures of where fireworks were going on, and they were that much difference between the fireworks that were going off where they were banned and where they weren't, being able to go and do that. But it's one of those things that for the percentage of people, and it isn't a insignificant percentage, it's not a majority, but it's not an insignificant percentage that would rather that we would ban things, and then that changes the nature of the complaints because, well, they're banned now, why aren't you doing more about it?
Right.
To be able to go and do that. And and I've never thought of banning something just to say that you banned it if it's not going to actually create changes in behavior. Doesn't seem wise to me, but to do that. The other thing though that isn't here on this list of either that or there, and can I infer that we had no fireworks related injuries?
I don't recall any fireworks related injuries.
Yeah, would that be more the fire department?
That would be the fire department.
Okay,
Could be, but they didn't share it with us. The information that we have from the fire department is listed here as far as their calls for service related to, during the same timeframe.
mhm. Great. That's all I have.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Quick comment on I actually, you look at some of these surrounding jurisdictions and they have banned fireworks and it doesn't work. There's people are ripping off fireworks all over the place. You go to, anywhere you want and go buy fireworks and you take it back to wherever you live and you go light them off. So there's a lot of energy out there, celebrating the 4th of July in many ways. And I think really our code, the way that we have it written to try to focus the energy to a limited time is really the best thing that you're going to ask for. And you hope that there's enough people out there that concentrate all that positive energy to those times. And hopefully it doesn't go into, 1, 2, 3 in the morning and stuff, or stretch out for a lot of time before and after. But I think the way that we have it now, it's probably the sweet spot. We're not going to expect cops to go out there and start arresting everyone for, whose fireworks were these? And, there's 30 people standing in the street and it's not really realistic, right? So, anyway, I think that, kind of where we're at now is really a good spot. And I hope that more and more people, maybe if we do a better job of kind of communicating the hours, leading up to the 4th of July, that's probably, the best thing that we can do is just try to focus people's time and that. So thank you.
I would just say that the decision that the council made was that why would we set ourselves up to fail because we can't control it, we can't control it. So I agree. The best decision was made to limit it to time. So, and they did a great job. Some people complain, but still, I didn't hear it as late or as early in the morning as I had in the past this year. It was much quieter. Yeah. So are there any other questions from anyone? Yep. Chief, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Next on our agenda is the multi-tax exempt program, and for that, we call on our Director of Planning and Public Works Director, Mr. Jeff Remack, and our Economic Development Manager, Ms. Becky Newton. Yeah. He probably is. I just had him shut off. So thank you, guys.
Shall I start? Okay. Great. Good evening, Deputy Mayor Moss and members of council. This evening, council requested for a study session to review the multifamily tax exemption program. As you know, we recently did some updates to the code as well as residential target areas. Just briefly outlining what is in the memo this evening. So in 2023, November 20, there was an adoption of Ordinance 792. The primary updates obviously were to update the code to be in compliance with state requirements, to achieve development densities conducive to transit, and promote economic investment and so forth. The code noted that would not include ADUs. And it increased the notice for folks to move from 90 to 120 days if that was required. It added the 12-year extension if 30% of affordable or 20% of units were affordable at 70%. Application for review was transferred from City Council. adoption, to administratively, approved for eligibility with a resolution coming back to city council for approval. We further defined requirements for affordability. There's annual compliance review for 8 and 12-year, both the 8 and 12-year program, and adding noticing requirements for changes in the RTAs and also increasing the minimum units to 15. Additional discussion was held in 2024 and 2025. Some minor code amendments and, as I mentioned, the RTA expansion discussions. So anything to add at this point?
No, just really just about the focus in 23. One of the big changes for the department was to being administrative in terms of set benchmarks for what applied and when you could be eligible for the program. Really fell to the department in a big way.
Great. So obviously the purpose of the MFTE is that's a much needed code to increase economic development and growth within the city of Lakewood and to add much needed housing here. Some of the benefits are infrastructure investment. So housing projects often trigger and provide taxes for upgrades to roads, public transit, schools, utilities, and health services. Environmental revitalization, including smart development, job creation, construction, real estate, et cetera. Local spending power, new residents mean more foot traffic to local businesses, cafes, salons, groceries, et cetera. Expanded tax base, property taxes are related fees from new developments provide municipalities with more funding for public services such as safety, education, et cetera. Also business attraction and retention. Companies prefer to settle in areas where their workforce can live nearby. So housing growth and availability make a region more competitive in attracting industries. There is a small graph or chart that was provided on economic impact. This is a general sample that was extracted from conversations with the city of Tacoma on a sample project and intended to be an estimate based on projects we've seen. It by no means includes all of the aspects of a project, but it's just a general economic impact of a sample project. Annual output is a key measurement of growth, which is essentially gross annual income minus the operating costs. And if you look at the overall impact, including costs and induced effects on the community, the estimate for that particular example is approximately $5.5 million of economic impact. As we know, there's a significant need for housing, and we have significant housing goals. And at this point, we estimate that we need to be at a pace of approximately 500 net new units per year to meet those goals. Benefits. Go ahead,
Can I speak
yes.
on that one really quick? The one key thing with the MFT when we look at it is it's been a big proponent from when we come in for multifamily and the number of units that we're looking at. That's directly tied to our regional center status with Puget Sound Regional Council. So in order for the monies that we've received and what we're looking at for the traffic improvements, the capital improvement projects that we've done, those are based around our eligibility for being a regional center. To maintain regional center status, we have to have increasing growth within our downtown area, what we look at. So when we have the one chart that's on the second page, really when we look at it about the growth targets and where we're looking at, those come from Department of Commerce, then through PSRC, then the regional coordinating councils take a look at it. Each jurisdiction looks to how many they're willing and they're going to take on. It should be noted though that for Lakewood being the second largest jurisdiction in Pierce County, we have the second largest expectation of growth and what we need to look at. We do need that to maintain the regional center status. So one of the big things for me when I look at the MFTE is the number of dwelling units and people and population that come into the, besides the economic, I do look at the housing with it because that's how we maintain our center status.
Okay, some of the benefits to the MFTE, it stimulates redevelopment and growth, more housing of all types, increases housing property taxes over time, creates jobs, stimulates the economy, motivates reinvestment by others inside the community as well as outside the community. More housing is critical for growth, and rooftops essentially, as I mentioned before, equal more traffic to businesses and promotes the revitalization. Some of the common threads that we hear from residents and others are concerns, trees, noise pollution, security and crime. Lesser effect due to, we believe, and what we've seen, there is a lesser effect due to more dense commercial use. And then the upgrades and additions to the Lakewood Police Department activities such as cameras, police presence, as well as, really a focus on the downtown. Generally asphalt, there's a lot of asphalt in the downtown. So essentially, we're actually adding more trees to projects, particularly in the downtown area. Developers receiving incentives. Some folks are concerned about that. So the developers are essentially the property owners that invest into the community. And property owners are also many times the developers, whether they do it themselves or hire someone to build the project. And as we all know, costs are going up, uncertainty in the market, as well as close margins of profitability are of concern, even though there may be some exemptions, for example, on the new rent control requirement for new construction. We are hearing that there is some concern and creating a bit of a drop in start in new housing projects within the region.
The reality when you look at the MFTE and it comes into the tax incentive and what they take away from it is I know many people look at it and they go, that's an incentive for them to come and build. Well, like, for instance, some of the projects cost $90 million. The incentive is a $12 million drop if you're looking at a 12-year MFTE that you were at, but that's 20%. So say 62 units that are now affordable. They're now running an AMI, so about $1,650 a month. So over the total life of that, you're saving $4.9 million at the same time in affordable housing rent. So there's an offset. So the net increase really to a person who's developing is about $7 million in that time in that area. And that's spread across 12 years and what they're looking at. But the difference also is they would need $12 million more in capital at the onset to be able to move forward with a project. What's a $95 million project as it is, 26 to 30% they got to put down. And actually to be able to get funded to do any of that, unless you have a bunch of silent partners, it's a serious investment to move forward with multifamily and what we're looking at. So the multifamily tax exemption, when you look at it, yes, it appears large, but it's not that large in comparison to what people are putting out there and developers are putting out there. The other common thing that we hear is like, well, it's people that are not in Lakewood. They're not all in Lakewood, but they are property owners regardless. So that means they have a stake and a footprint here. And they're looking at bringing in the economic generation like what we talked about. And when we looked at the other units, that was 200 multifamily units, bringing in about $5.4 million a year in economics between shopping and everything else that they do within the community. So I don't feel when we look at the comments where it's always about they're not a Lakewood or they're coming from outside of Lakewood, they're still adding value to Lakewood. They're still adding value to the people's lives that live in Lakewood. Whether they live in Tacoma or Seattle or wherever they may live, they're developing housing and giving infrastructure and ability for people to live and enjoy their life here. So that's important to keep in mind when people talk about the incentive. It's great risk and great reward with what they're looking at. It's not for the faint of heart.
Thank you. And then speaking of investment, just to give an example, the two projects that are mentioned within your packet, the Springbrook 2, which is 76 units, is estimated to be a $25 million or more investment into the community, which includes just under $3 million for land, 1.4 million in planning and engineering, $225,000 in offsite improvements, $70,000 in legal fees, and then up to $20 million in construction costs. And then the Alliance project, which is 309 units, land approximately 9 million, planning and engineering upwards of 5 million or more. Offsite improvements, 500,000, legal, 180,000, and construction, 69 million. And so that's $85 million as an example of the investment for that project.
Well, one thing about the projects also, when the projects do come in, so like Alliance would be a good example. One of the comments we've heard is about we want to see more trees, what we're looking at. Becky's mentioned it. There are more trees, but there's also environmental concerns and impacts that are not increased, but we actually do better when it comes to water quality with what we're looking at. Right now, we have 10 acres of asphalt that are subject to dripping oil, rubber, any of your antifreeze, anything of that nature that's been leaking. And they were built at a time where there was no water quality requirement. So everything that goes into a catch basin over there is going into Ponce de Leon and then out. Whereas the redevelopment, when we're looking at it, they're gonna have to capture every bit that's coming down now, put it into a water quality device, treat it, and it'll either infiltrate on site, meaning it could transfer as interflow to get to Ponce de Leon. But the overall delta between now and in the future is a decrease. And the water quality will be better, what is going into Ponce de Leon than what exists now, because that's been one of the common things we've heard. And that's pretty standard across any site when you look at it. There are development regulations that come into effect that you have to upgrade what was going on. You can't just build off of what was already existing and say, hey, just let all the oil run into the water. We don't do that.
Do you publicize those comments?
Yes, we've published those and we've spoken to those quite a bit. I'll be honest, I think it's more of an emotional response sometimes when people are looking at it. Understanding, right? Because I've lived in the communities where it grew and it changed, and I'm like, I go home to where I grew up and it's a completely different town now. So there's response to what you look at, but the facts of it, when we look at it, we do share those, but I don't know that they're always heard.
Thank you. Mr. Branstad?
Well, thank you for the report, and I agree, we've had this program for a while, and we've had a number of projects. I think, and certainly the two projects that are coming to us that are under consideration, okay, are both sizable. Okay, as opposed to, they are actually, larger than the averages on, because we've had some really quite small projects over the period of time. So I have some mixed feelings about the program itself, given the changes that have come down from the state regarding our housing targets. And particularly the fact that our housing targets have bands of income that we have to meet to be able to go and do that. And we have not been given by the state or enacted ourselves in our own policy ways to see that incentivized, or projects that are incentivized through the multifamily tax exemption, are helping us get to those housing targets. It's helping us get to the total number of housing units. But when you have that 85 to 90% of the units that get built with multifamily tax exemption incentives, okay, that when we have a requirement that 45% of the new units that we have to have, the 500 new units a year, have to fit in one of the affordable bands rather than being market rate. You know, we're setting ourselves, we're going to be not too many years of where we'll have all the market rate housing that we can have, and we've got to totally find a way to do that unless we work at changing some incentives around what's going on. I do agree that in almost every case of the ones that we have and in the ones that are proposed, the fact that they will be new construction to new code is going to be beneficial to environmentally safety and going forward to doing that. And that's one of the biggest advantages of taking undeveloped or underdeveloped properties and incentivize and I don't think that you can look at as when I look at the property tax projection chart. The property tax projection chart seems to be based on an assumption that if you don't give an exception, nothing will ever be built there for the next 20 years. It'll just keep the same whatever's there now. I don't necessarily think that that's true. I think if as population grows and there's demand for housing, we'll get something done. But we will get it done faster if we incentivize it. That I think that's true. The residential target areas allow us to help to try to meet our goals with related to increasing density in the vicinity of transit. Okay, and I think that's an important factor in terms of being able to go and do that, and that the thing goes on. But the multifamily tax exemption doesn't help us with significantly with affordable housing. It's it does. I think that there's a relation, and the state has not modified ways to allow us to convert it, to make it a true affordable housing incentive tool to be able to go and do that. But I guess my real question is that as you look at a project that comes forward, the fact that it's in an RTA and that it's got 15 units is pretty much the basic requirement to meet minimum eligibility. But one of the things that goes on is the issue around design standards in terms of neighborhoods to do that. In the 1980s and 90s, we built particularly on the east side of the city, there was lots of multifamily construction that was, I'll use the word shoddy, okay, or certainly didn't appeal to much. It was mostly two-story, didn't provide a great significant density as to over what would have been possible on it to be able to go and do that. And so, just the fact that a project is going to meet some minimal standard to be eligible doesn't necessarily mean that we should approve it. Now, I certainly am very supportive of incentivizing and moving forward and getting it to move quickly on the Alliance project here in the town center. It serves a great number of other factors, and the one big advantage of that project that if it can be built over the next 2 years successfully, it will serve as a example to other developers about what can successfully be done here, and that's going to be helpful to us as a community, and it will support our being able to move forward in doing it. I have some questions about the Springbrook 2 piece. It's somewhat has to do with the fact that the Springbrook Wellstone development had some pluses and minuses to it when it was built. And this says Springbrook 2, is this the same developer? Or is it just a name?
Council member, it is the same developer, yes.
Okay, it's the same developer, but that developer doesn't own the original. They sold the original,
That's correct,
so.
yes.
Yeah, so that, so they're a developer that Alliance has a history of developing things and then managing them long-term. In terms of doing things, this particular developer doesn't, and it's reflected by the fact that they're not particularly interested in having the affordable housing piece to be able to go and do that. So for me, that's one to look at more closely as to whether there's really going to be where it is and some Pondeck and to do that. And as we go into next week, I'll have some questions about really more about that one in terms of that is it really providing some advantages to it? But I did have some questions about the projected property tax revenue chart as to what assumptions were being made in order to make this look so grand. To be honest, if we're going to be considering a tax exemption, the property tax revenue piece is not a big decision point. For me, it's a question of, is this something we want? Where it is it appropriate size and the kind of things to do that? Yeah, that's more important to me than this, but this sort of implies that if we don't give an exemption, nothing will get built on that property. Now, and I don't think that's true, but I think what might get built there might not be multifamily housing. Okay, as we've seen in some other places in residential target areas of where there's been commercial construction of businesses to be able to go and do that to move forward. We're still looking for 50% of our housing growth to occur outside of the residential target areas. You know, the guidelines that we have and the goals, we still need half of the housing to do that. And we are seeing multifamily development outside of residential target areas where developers aren't applying for this tax exemption because those areas aren't eligible. That's fine. I will say on the history of doing these, of the previous projects, there were only 2 that I can recall where when they applied, there was a really stated effect by the applicant that if I don't get this, I'll have to downsize the project or not do it at all. Okay, and those happen to be for 2 very small projects, okay, that were actually being done by, property owners. The Rainier Terrace, where he was trying to add some apartments and he wanted to add some apartments and he went to do that and he going through, and that actually turned out fine to be able to go on. But, others, as Mr. Remack has said, this can help pencil out a really expensive project by, and it speaks to the people that a developer is going to borrow the money to do the project in terms of what he needs to be able to go and do that. So it's a valuable tool, I think, to get multifamily housing built. But we're gonna get to the point of where we've built we've built too much multifamily market rate housing to the point of where now we have to focus on our available land being for affordable housing, and particularly the very affordable in that lowest tier folks to do that. So maybe I should get to a question for Mr. Remack, and that is, in the municipal codes, the one thing beside the basic eligibility requirements is a project going to add significant density in the areas of transit that are commensurate with it's more conducive to transit use in those areas where they are. And that's not really on the checklist for eligibility, but it's sort of, in policy for us to consider whether to approve a contract. And how do you go about deciding that particular evaluation of a project? Is it going to create densities more conducive to transit use?
So in all honesty, when we look at that, any increased density that's gonna be a multifamily is gonna be more conducive to transit use, because you have to have the density and the draw for transit to consider coming to the area. So if a single family residence was to go into an area and you could put 10 single family residents in, that'd be the equivalent. If there was to say there's 5 people per home, that would be 50. But if you come in and you do multifamily and you do 200 homes there, even if there was one, that's 4 times the pedestrian draw or people potentially using the transit when they look at it. So population is one of the things that's going to drive. So the centric, when you look at it as to where they're at, they won't put in a transit stop for 6 homes. They will put in a transit stop for an entire apartment complex when they look at it. So naturally, it's kind of driven that Pierce will look at it more when it comes to transit service.
Yeah, well, in the last action that we've had of where we were expanding RTAs, and there's a question of where to expand them and where not, and I was supportive of expanding an RTA and creating one in Tillicum, because Tillicum is an area that we are aggressively trying to get Sound Transit and Pierce Transit to increase the presence and the availability of public transit to be able to go there. So the fact that that was one reason why I looked at making an RTA. And you mentioned the comments that you get, but a lot of the comments can be combined up that we have in the community is people don't really like their neighborhoods to change. Even the fact that the state is causing us to giving us goals and mandating zoning rules that cause us to do that. But that I think that the only way that we're going to change the opinion of people is to allow some things to be built and let people see, it isn't so bad.
I was just curious as to Springbrook 2. And I'm trying to envision where you would put those. Is that on the other side of the street?
No, I believe it's right behind it, isn't it, in a
So-
parcel?
It's closer to I-5.
Yeah.
It is.
Oh, it's down
On the
by
west side, basically. So you have Wellstone, on Bridgeport. And then just in behind the Wellstone project is the new Springbrook 2, which is, as was mentioned, closer to I-5.
Yeah, I
Yes.
was just trying to envision that and I couldn't find it.
Yeah. So the property owner is working on easement, so for a pathway to connect to Bridgeport and throughout the area, back to the Springbrook Park as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Mayor.
Very much. I'm glad to be at the party. Ms. Newton, on the Wellstone project, I just want to clarify, as best I recall, that was one that likely wouldn't have been developed but for the MFTE. Seems to me that that was something very material to their decision.
Mayor Whalen, that's correct. And in fact, that if you remember, there was a very dilapidated mobile home park that had lots of issues.
Oh, I remember well
And
for
so
acres. Yeah.
lots of cleanup and so forth as well, as you remember. And so, yes, that is definitely, that was a 208 unit gated community, and the MFTE definitely helped to make that project pencil. Both the Alliance, which is the 309 unit, and the Springbrook 2, both of those developers have said that the MFTE, particularly in this market, was needed in order to make the project pencil.
Yeah. Was needed in this market because capital costs are higher, you know, the whole thing. And so
Yeah.
for folks to be able to do these larger projects that are costlier, this can make the difference between being competitive and possibly financially viable or not, really. That's,
Yes.
any alliance is going forward, is that right, folks? I mean, as far as we know, it's moving forward.
Yes.
That's correct.
Well, Mr. Boki, I guess. Yeah, she's still got the gavel until I take it over at the end here.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, Mr. Reback, Ms. Newton. Thank you for presenting. Just a couple of questions on the packet. Page 24, we've got that chart on housing needs. We've got targets for 2035 and for 2044 in the same table. And the 2035 targets are listed as trying to meet a 2044 target. Is that, it's apples and oranges? I'm trying to figure out how to make.
It's not really apples and oranges. What we're looking at with the 2044 is the Vision 2050 projection from PSRC. What we're looking at with the 2035 is the 10-year comprehensive plan goals that we set as a city.
And we set our comprehensive plan goals to meet them by 2035 to meet that vision for 2044.
Yes, the goal is that we'll always be forward momentum to try and hit the goal by 2044.
Okay, and the 500 units a year gets us to there by 2035 or by 2044?
Well, I think it's all inclusive. I mean, considering the downtown requirement and then the 2024 or 2044.
Okay, thank you. And then my other question was on page 27. I think Councilmember Brandstetter started to talk about it a little bit. Did the assumptions in that chart basically state if we didn't go with MFTE, we don't anticipate other housing growth?
So those ones are specific to the MFTE and what projects they already occurred on. So using their existing, what their land values are and what existed on the site previously. It is always possible that someone could come and develop in what they're looking at. And if I was to look at a comparison of what my answers to be, it'd be between how many projects we've had under the MFTE in the last 10 years and how many we've had that have come in of their own recognizance for looking to develop, to really understand. The big thing to me when I look at it is there's a balance in really what we're doing. We're the second largest city in all of Pierce County. We have an expectation for growth. How to control that growth is really what we try to focus on and what the comprehensive plan has been looked at. So when we look at the table that we were at previously, we're trying to keep them in certain areas so that we, one, can control, like Councilman Brandstetter has said, what is the appearance of what we're looking at? Because sub-area plans come with design standards and where we're at. If we start to build outside of those sub-area plans, we don't have the controls that exist. We don't have design standards that are there. We've incentivized things to be here and in this area specifically so that we can control that growth and what we're doing. But there has to be some form of growth, because if we don't get that growth and we lose center status, we're gonna be ineligible for large pots of money that exist in terms of the benefit of the city. So it's a holistic view when I look at it as to where we're at, trying to protect the more suburban areas that exist, but then focusing where we do need to do increase and we do need to show so that we stay eligible. So when we make these assumptions and what we're looking at here, these are the MFTEs, and they were expressed to us as the reason they came is because of the MFTE. Could something else have come in? Yes, but we have no way to really predict that.
Yeah, it's hard to plan that. scenario.
Yeah, so there's not really a way to plan it. So like I said, I think the one that I would look at if I was trying to compare them would be how many came in, how many have we had in 10 years that were not MFTE related, and how many have come in that were MFTE related, and how many units were associated with that? And kind of what the trickle down effect of that would be in terms of affordability, things of that nature.
Okay. Have you done that analysis to share?
No, I've not.
Thank you. And then if we build enough market rate housing, does that then lower the cost of what the market is?
So supply and demand, yes, that would be one of the things we're always looking at. One of the items I think if there was more availability for market rate housing, you would see would be a greater influx from the base and the families from the base living in the area. They have designated income. What they're looking for is somewhere to live. They don't have that currently in Lakewood, and that's part of the reason we look at the density. With them comes greater spending, just like the small chart we looked at about the 5.5 million. They have, I won't call it disposable income, but they have steady routine sets of income. So that's greater tax influx into the city as to what we're looking at. So then that's kind of the betterment of everyone, right? Like, all ships rise on the tide type scenario.
Some concerns I've heard from the community is as we build more market rate housing, does it raise the cost of housing in the surrounding community? And does that price out some folks who are there? And how do we address that?
So that part of that is what we look at when it comes to some of the MFTE and some of the different programs. One of the things that people can look at is they can look at what other incentive programs do exist. Right now, the city doesn't own parcels we're looking at. And granted, this is a big lift when we talk about it, but like to go ahead and do a development, we don't have that ability currently right now. It's not within our funding strata, what we look at, or the properties that we own to try and have an affordable housing program. But as more people come and they see the incentive and we increase, and then we get like the first, like Alliance to recognize, they'll call it the first domino of like, yes, this worked. Okay. More come behind that when they look at it. If they want that larger FTE or MFTE, that is, okay, well, I need to do a percentage in this. I think that's one of the revenues that we literally look at and we kind of start to move forward. But there are other areas that have already been put into the RTA that we're looking at that we'll see in the future what comes with that. When we look at like Councilman Branstad mentioned Tillicum and the expansion there, that could easily have a portion that became housing for the base or greater densification of what they're looking at. It's difficult to really predict because when you drive around Lakewood and you look, it's clear that previously we were Pierce County when it comes to it in terms of the layouts of the lots and the size of the lots and where we're at. And I'm really hesitant to try and do anything out in those areas because I want to keep it driven here because the state law requirements and changes for what people can do have been so they can modify things that are outside of the downtown core pretty easily if someone really wanted to. They say, I'm going to subdivide this to 3. And I'm like, I don't have an option to say no. So what I am trying to do when I make recommendations, propose controls on areas where we can limit and the impact to the surrounding community to maintain what we have for as long as we possibly can. But that requires the coordination, and some people will not necessarily be happy with the change that's going to occur, but we need to centralize it and focus on it. And I don't know that we can really, I don't feel like we can be scared of that because it's for the betterment of what we're going to kind of go.
Thank you.
You good?
Yep.
Mr. Mayor?
I think I just wanted to ask Mr. Remack and Ms. Newton a little bit on page 27 with the chart that talks about tax revenue over the course of time. So no MFTE versus having MFTE, even though that there's a hit on the immediate tax revenue over the course of time as the time period phases out, the value to the city of a taxable base grows, it looks like exponentially or substantially.
It,
Yes.
it does grow substantially
Yeah.
when you look at it. I think the easiest one, this is a cumulative of all the different projects that have existed,
Right.
but if you look at, like for Alliance, when we looked at it, it's very close, if not like to flat zero for the 12 years that we're moving, but then you see at the last year, the difference in change goes to about approximately $1 million. So that's $1 million every year from there, plus whatever levy
Right.
increases, things like that that go. This is not a short-term win every time,
Sure.
right? Alliance has a bigger gap and actually it's worse because the property valuation is high,
Mhm.
right? So it already has a high property value when it comes to the land. Whereas if you go to an area that has a more depressed cost of land and then you move in and then you improve, immediately the land value jumps.
Right.
And so you start to see a greater return almost immediately. But in the long run, yes, it's a positive. It's a net gain.
Very good.
Quick comment on that. So Mr. Branstetter, you know, was kind of hinting at it maybe not being an affordable housing tool. And I don't think it's really meant to be an affordable housing tool. I think would you say it's meant to be a housing tool and really an economic development tool to increase taxes and stuff, you know, over time? You know, it's an upfront investment that, you know, we see on this chart that has some exponential gains, you know, in the long term, and you bring in, you know, more potential workforce housing, more workers, you know, we're creating more jobs, we're building, you know, that kind of density, I guess, and that base in the downtown area.
So when I look at the program and when I read on it, really it's an economic incentive tool. It has, the primary effect of it is it does create housing. And then it has some incentives on top of that to get a longer exemption period if you go ahead and look at doing affordable housing. So it's multi-faced, but really its primary function is an economic incentive tool because houses and rooftops beget increase in tax.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, one of the primary goals is more housing in general. I think that when you start accomplishing more housing in general, those other areas that you need to kind of target, you know, they become easier to work those out because we've already built that base number of units. You know, if we're already getting, you know, we've done 5,000 units, well, that's a lot easier to try to come up with some different programs to do some affordable housing and actual units that are built or provide some other incentives, then there's no units there at all. And now we have to, you know, focus on completely building projects that are 100% affordable, you know, projects. So.
Well, and one of the things to look at, so I agree with Councilman Branstetter in terms of wanting to see the affordability where we can and what we're looking at. But I also want to be reflective of what we're looking at. If we looked at Alliance, that's 309 homes. If I took that and put it against the 2,200 homes that are required between now and 2035, that's 15% of the total homes that we're supposed to put within the downtown core. There is still capacity to do more, really and still grow at both multiple levels. And the one thing about Alliance is it is coming in with some, you know, affordable housing when you look at it. So at the 1,600 range versus what is market average right now, 2,300 for a 2-bedroom. But it isn't a fix-all. You know, I hear Councilman Branstetter when he says that it is not going to hit all the levels, but it will give tax revenue to be able for the city to better address things in the future or the lower levels.
Couple other comments that may be of interest to the council. As you may recall, the Devco project over in the Lakewood Station District is 345 units that are 100% affordable at 60% AMI. And so they have expressed an interest in doing additional projects. So, you know, once developers see a successful project like that, there may be, you know, be encouraged to do additional similar projects. Those were subsidized projects. Then also, as we look at the Alliance project and other projects coming forward, again, you know, within the downtown, we feel that that will be a catalyst for developing additional multifamily and commercial within the downtown and within Lakewood. And also of interest, since we've had the program, we had 7 projects come forward within the first 20 years. Whereas since 2023, we've had 5 new projects. So the updates that you did make to the code and particularly the predictability that developers have, that the projects will move forward has been significant. So those new projects are the Kendrick Townhomes, which are 44, the Kendrick Apartment 7, Springbrook 76, Halcyon, which is in the Lakewood Station 40, and then Alliance at 309. So it's been fairly significant since the changes in the code.
If there's anything we can do to promote growth within the city of Lakewood, it will be predictability in what we read both in the code and the service that you will get from the city. That is 100% what will promote people to come here.
Just also addressing the comment you made as far as developers building and selling their projects. So as an example, Momentum, the owner of the project actually grew up in Lakewood and is a resident of the area. And so he is invested in the area. And so I think he would like to do additional projects here as well.
Thank you much.
Thank you guys for the report. Madam Clerk, at this point, I am passing the gavel back to the mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Next item for discussion tonight is a review of the Pacific Point Defense Contract Amendment with Mr. Vargas.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members. Michael Vargas here to review the contract amendment for you tonight, and I'll be starting on page 28 of your packet. So to give a bit of context here, this amendment may look familiar because a similar version came before the council in June. And as fate would have it, that same day, the Washington State Supreme Court released their interim order concerning the new caseload limits for misdemeanors. It essentially elongates the implementation time. And so that informed this new amendment before you. So looking at the Pacific Point Defense background, the city has a contract with PPD, formerly known as Horwath Law, for public defense services with a contract that began in 2021 and terminates the end of this year, December 31st, 2025. There have been 2 amendments to this contract over its lifetime, and the punchline there is that it's becoming increasingly costly to provide public defense services. It's not exactly a lucrative business. As an attorney, you can make far more money under private practice. And so in order to remain competitive in this market, we have to increase attorney compensation over time, essentially. So looking at the indigent defense standards, in March of 2024, the Washington State Bar Association approved and released its updated indigent defense standards. Misdemeanor caseloads were set to decrease ultimately to 120 cases per attorney when they are currently at 400 cases per attorney. And that was to begin July 2025. And also that they took a phased approach in that implementation, the bar did. So in July of 2025, case limits were set to become 280 cases. The Washington State Supreme Court released its interim order in June 2025, which stated that the 120 misdemeanor caseload limit would begin implementation in January 2026 and could be reached by January 2036, allowing for a 10-year implementation window. An implementation can be accomplished in a phased approach with an annual reduction of at least 10% of the difference between the current standard and the new standard, as measured on January 1st, 2026, until that new standard has been met. And the interim order further reads that if you do the math there, the current standard for misdemeanor cases is 400 cases per attorney. The new standard is 100 cases per attorney, a difference of 200 cases, 280 cases. So each year, the caseload limit per attorney must decrease by at least 10% or 28 cases if full compliance is achieved by January 2036. All of this is to further say it will again become more costly to provide public defense services over time. So the amendment before you tonight addresses two items. The direction last time was to increase the contract term by 1 year with a termination date of December 31st, 2026 to align with the city's biennium budget cycle to allow a bit more planning there. And number two, increase compensation to cover the increased number of attorneys needed to address the new lower caseload limits over time. So looking at the next page of the memo, at the compensation schedule proposal. Let's go ahead and look at the yellow highlighted items there, looking at the annual compensation, 2025 proposed. Total annual cost would be roughly $890,000. And the 2026 proposed total annual cost would be roughly $1.18 million. And what are we buying for that? If we look at FTEs under 2025, we are looking at roughly, well, we are looking at 5 FTEs for attorneys, and then 6 FTEs for attorneys in 2026, with an associated increase in support staff as well. And support staff are also addressed in the Bar Association Indigent Defense Standards. There's certain ratios of attorney to a support staff that must be met by 2028. And I went ahead and put that in the appendix there for you. So we need more attorneys and we need more support staff essentially. So the recommendation is we should approve the amendment to the current contract, increase the contract term by 1 year, and to increase the compensation schedule to $890,000 in 2025 and about $1.18 million in 2026.
So let me ask you a question. We're going basically from 700,000 for 7 FTEs in 2025, and we're jumping almost 400,000 for the addition of 1.5 FTEs.
Sure. So looking at the line item there, looking at attorneys, the first line item, we're getting another 0.5 FTE attorney. And under supervising attorney, we actually haven't been paying for a supervising attorney in 2025. And we should be, according to the new standards. And so that's where that increase comes from as well, the 0.45 supervising attorney.
No, I see it. I'm just looking at the total number of FTEs, and I agree that the attorneys are going to be pricier than the legal assistants and the business manager receptionist. I get that, but it's still, it is what it is. It's a big jump, but.
Yep.
Yeah, right, exactly. I mean, at some point, we'll probably have to go out for an RFQ or something like that at the end of the budget cycle for 27, 28, I assume. We'll probably end up having to do that. It's just, it's a big jump. Not that it's not unique to me, believe me. I see it in my other day job thing.
And Mr. Mayor, I probably should have hung on to it, but if you look in this month's bar news, there's an advertisement there I've never seen in my entire career. And it's an advertisement for public defenders for King County. Full page, glossy ad, offering bonuses. This is the beginning of what's going to be a competition. And I would commend Mr. Vargas for trying to get us a little bit ahead of it, because I think what we're trying to do is lock down something. I think it's commendable to try and do an RFP or an RFQ, but just based on what we've seen in the past when it wasn't as competitive, this is going to be
it'll be different.
Hunger Games might be a bit too extreme, but that's what we're looking at. It's there's not enough lawyers right now, and I know no one ever thought anyone would ever think that ever, but that's where we are.
Well, while you're up there, let me ask you, because it's come up in another discussion today. The defense bar is going to be reducing the case standards to 120 cases over time, right?
Correct.
So right now, your office, my office, are doing cases per attorney prosecutors at about 375 to 400. At least we are.
Oh, we can do more than that.
Yeah, so are you going to have to then eventually get another FTE or two to accommodate the
Miss-
reduced standards? at this
Mr. Mayor,
challenge?
I expect a lot of places to start looking for that kind of equity. And in fact, there was an article in the Bar News about 4 to 6 months ago. Same person that kind of started the energy behind the public defender stuff is trying to start energy behind the prosecutor stuff, saying that that's all really pressing and whatnot. I would encourage the city to the degree that we're allowed to under GR 29, coordinate with our court, because the way that we staff our courts for prosecution is by calendar. There's no point in my having 5 prosecutors bumping into each other on the same calendar. Give one calendar to one prosecutor, send them in and let them go. However, if you start having 7 defenders and 1 prosecutor, things get a little crazy. And there is potentially some value in trying to figure out a different way to calendar things. So if you have 1 defender with all their cases and 1 prosecutor with all their cases, it might work. I don't know if there's an answer there, and it certainly isn't within the province of the prosecutor to decide that. But I guess what I'm saying is, before we just decide we need hundreds of lawyers running around City Hall, I would take
Never
a
a bad thing.
well, first of all, they don't exist. And second of all, there's going to be real competition for the money of it. And the other thing I would remind you, and that we've told you before, is that one of the things we're looking at that may or may not be palatable is the control that we have, because we are the charging side of things. Case never gets to the courtroom unless we charge it. And so if there are some less expensive alternatives, I know the city manager is aware from some of her prior experience that there are sometimes some diversion programs you can do. There are limits on that, but it might be something worth exploring.
Very good, thanks. Any more, Mr. Vargas? I mean, you gave us the death knell bottom line, look for another 400 grand, I get it.
It's essentially it, and a good segue into what, the different pieces of the system here can control under the Lakewood Municipal Court. They can control their calendars and indigent screening, and the city can control everything contractual, such as annual case limits, our compensation schedule, and then our legislative advocacy is also one of our strong suits. So we can advocate for more and better public defense funding, so.
Very good, Mr. Brandstetter, and then I think Mr. Boki.
I did have a question about you when you said, you had 2 separate sections, or you said, what can the Lakewood Municipal Court control? And then what can the city control as 2 different entities, okay, to be able to go and do that, and I sort of say equate it as what is in the decision purview of the judge and what is in the decision purview of the city manager. Is that, they fit in those particular pieces, but but under indigent screening, which you put under controlled by the court, and but you listed like there maybe are 3 options where we essentially, and I'm wanted to understand. It says assign indigent screening function to one of 3 parties, and it says a public defense firm, and that's the current method. So is that, do I interpret that to say we let the firm that has the contract decide whether people should get one of their attorneys or not? It sort of seems like that to their advantage to certify more people as needing indigent defense to be able to go and do that. Is there a way, how does the court control that if they keep the current model? And if you discuss with the judge the other 2 options in the model?
Sure. Well, they're still bound by the RCW, right? Even if it is assigned to a public defense firm. And honestly, talking with Judge Lewis, whether it's one of these three options, if as a client or as a defendant, if you qualify for any state assistance, you will qualify for a public defender. So there really isn't too much gain to whether to move around that function or not, ultimately in reality, because of the you'll be able to qualify as a public for a public defender if you qualify for any state assistance, which is often the case, right? You're reaching the audience you want to, but yeah, there's not really too much gain there.
Okay,
Yep.
but is that function in the process of assigning that function to the public defense contractor? Is that in the contract that we're seeking to amend, but it's already there, so we're not changing it, but the contract already says that they perform that function?
It's not in the contract, it's outside of the contract.
So how does the judge say that that's the method? I mean, it says assign it to the firm. If it's not in the contract, how do you assign it?
Well, that's an administrative choice by the court to pick one of these three parties. It's not contemplated in the contract, so it's not a contractual negotiated decision.
Ms. Kraus.
I just wanted to say that I did meet with Judge Lewis, and he explained to me that the public defender screener, there was a period of time when it wasn't necessarily following the RCW in terms of screening. He's brought that back, and so they are following through the checklist per the RCW. And if the defendant is receiving type of assistance, he's asking for a proof of assistance. So
Do you know anecdotally the approximate percentage of the defendants in Lakewood Municipal Court that avail themselves of the indigent defense?
I don't know the current, but I will tell you back a number of years ago when I first started the city, I did take that public defender and break it down and made sure that all of the questions were being followed and that they actually met it, just as a review, not being very cautious of the functions of the courts. And
But I would bet
functions.
about 75 to 80%.
Yeah, listen.
That's correct. Looking at 2023 numbers, roughly 1,600 criminal cases and then 1,300 public defender cases. So, yep, in the ballpark.
Yeah. Did you have any other comments or questions, Mr. Bokier?
I was gonna say, I absolutely do not object to these hardworking, much maligned profession of attorneys.
Right.
Receiving just compensation.
Exactly. Shakespeare would approve.
No, this is a concern. This is a concern for a lot of folks. I'm glad the Supreme Court at least gave us, I wish they had modified the thing even more, but at least gave this 10-year window, because it was causing a lot of heartache and panic in a lot of quarters. And I know at the county, they couldn't even agree to a number. I mean, there was one department that's saying it was going to be X amount a year and it was going to have this devastating impact. And there was other numbers that said it was going to be. So when they did the rollout, the 10-year, it made a huge difference. I think it made, I wouldn't even want to know what it would be if we had to go all the way. It would really put us in dire straits. And force us to make some very palatable decisions about things. So, I'm glad that happened. I think, I mean, we're just dealt a really bad hand, I think. And this is just where this is going. The percentage increase is big, even in this, but we'll just hope for the best.
Very good. Any other questions for Mr. Vargas? Again, thanks for the work on this. It does make a difference, and it's I don't want to say a poison pill, it's a painful pill, but it's one that all cities and even the county, you know, they're grappling with these increased costs for
Yeah,
defense and prosecution, so.
absolutely.
You know, the amazing thing is that we all are spending what, 65 to 70% of our general fund budgets on 1 to 2% of the population that does naughty stuff. Right? So there you go. Yep. Okay, well, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for the fine work. Yep. That concludes the study session items for discussion tonight. Those items tentatively scheduled for next week's regular city council meeting are listed on your agenda. It looks like we're coming back to the conversation that was commenced tonight on the MFTE conditional approvals of the Alliance Apartment Project as well as the Springbrook Annex Apartment Project. So in line with our study session tonight. I don't believe there are any other items other than to turn to the report by the city manager. So Ms. Kraus, the floor is yours.
Okay, so I sent out the city manager update. I don't really have any more to add to that since on Friday, but just going through the upcoming events. You have a busy week
Yeah.
with the sister city, Gimhae, as well as Summerfest. On July 15th at 10 a.m., you have the change of command ceremony. July 17th,
Wait. July 15th, tomorrow at 10 a.m.
I'm sorry, July 15th is not tomorrow.
Right.
July 10th at 10 a.m., you have the change of command ceremony. On July 17th, we have two events that start at the same time. And that's Desserts on the Driveway at Springbrook Park and the Gimhae Delegation Welcome Dinner. I will tell you that with the Desserts on the Driveway at Springbrook Park, it's going to be more like a resource fair. So they've got their vendors
Right.
have confirmed their attendance, and so they'll treat it like that.
Well, what we really were hoping to avoid is them feeling like we didn't care about their community and the fact that some of us, or maybe all of us, weren't able to show up. We
Yeah.
just want to communicate it appropriately that we do care.
Yes.
We just have a conflict. Thank you for that.
July 19th is the Summerfest from 11 a.m. till 10 p.m. And we have the Welcome Gimhae Delegation at 12 p.m. And then that same day at 6 p.m. is the Gimhae Delegation Farewell event. On July 24th at 6:30 p.m., we have Samoa Cultural Day community event at the Emerald Queen Casino. July 29th, we have both the Desserts on the Driveway at Oakbrook neighborhood, and that'll be either at the Adriatic Grill or the Oakbrook Elementary School. That same evening is also Summer Nights at the Pavilion Concert. July 30th, we have the employee picnic between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. at Fort Steilacoom Park Pavilion. August 5th, and I have to say I added an extra date. It's actually August 5th at 5 p.m. till 9 p.m. is National Night Out. And if you plan to attend any of those events, please let Brianna know. And then on August 5th, between 6:30 and 8 p.m., we have Summer Nights at the Pavilion Concerts. August 8th at Joint Base Lewis McChord, we have the Civilian Hall of Fame induction ceremony and Community Leaders Social at 11 a.m. August 9th, we have the Korean American Association of Tacoma Liberation Day in Tacoma. August 12th, Summer Nights at the Pavilion Concerts between 6:30 p.m. and 8 p.m. Also, that same evening, we have the Tillicum Neighborhood Association.
Of course it is. Yeah.
Yes. And so we do have a couple more events that are conflicting, July 29th and the August 12th event for Desserts on the Driveway and Summerfest. I don't know if City Council would like to move those dates or cancel an event just for the summer.
Well, I would really love to avoid having duplicate events on Tuesday evenings. You know, and I know it's tough to change horses, so to speak, in the middle of the month, but I bet if we could slide the one on the 29th to Wednesday, the 30th, you might get more attendance possibly, or Thursday or something, but it's just these duplicate things on Tuesday nights are problematic. So maybe Chris next year can avoid Tuesdays because we know the market and the concert series are going to be on Tuesdays in the summer. That would be a good thing to do.
And that's what I have for your calendar.
Okay. Very good. Any questions of Ms. Kraus? So the question, and then I'll have a question for Ms. Kraus on RSVPs for the two Gimhe events. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Just a couple of things from what we talked about tonight. First, the police chief, we talked, crime is down, arrests are up. I know it's out of the chief's lane, but perhaps we can get a presentation from the courts on what direction and trend data shows on the conviction side of things, right? We got more people we're arresting. In theory, we should have more cases that we're prosecuting. That then ties into the defense stuff we just talked about.
And maybe diversion for how
Or
much.
diversion,
diversion's
or
up to
what that's
doing,
gonna look like. Our arrests for the first half of the year for misdemeanors and gross misdemeanors are about 500.
yeah.
So that over the course of a year is maybe 1,000, so we are projecting 1,700 cases, even though we'd only have 1,000 arrests for misdemeanors and gross misdemeanors. Is that a backlog issue, or the numbers don't add up to me?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe something to look at in the future. And then in regards to the Gimhe delegation, Thursday's dinner, what time should we plan to be there?
For Thursday, it starts at 6 p.m. But Bren left some time for city council to, if they were going to go to the Tillicum event. However, it didn't allow for very much time at all. By the time that you got to the event, you would have to turn around and leave. So I would expect at 6:30.
Sounds good. And then the last question I had, we talked about it, I believe, last week. When should we plan to see an update on the cost study for the H-bar?
So we have a meeting coming up, and I believe it's this Thursday, just with the city team, internal city team, and the consultant. And so shortly after that, I'll give an update. We're just trying to look at the contingencies and the various components and how they added those amounts. But I'm anticipating, I'm hoping for the July, the end of the week report.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. So, Ms. Schumacher, do you have the RSVPs you need from us for the Gimhe event on Thursday as well as on Saturday? Or do you need that
Yes, we
still?
have all RSVPs for the Gimhe events.
Okay, you're good to go. Okay.
Correct. At this point, we're looking for RSVPs and National Night Out, whether you prefer to ride along with an officer.
I will.
Those
Yep.
would be winners.
Yep.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. The event for the Culture Day community event at Emerald Queen, what's the dress code? Do we know?
I don't know what the dress code is, but I'm going to assume it's business casual. Can we get information? Yeah, we'll get confirmation and send that out.
Thank you.
Very good. Well, thank you for the update. So let's turn to council comments and let's start with Mr. Boki.
Looking forward to meeting the Gimhe delegation on Thursday. And Summerfest on Saturday, and I hope it's not too hot. Yeah, and I think people have cooling tents now or whatever, misting tents now, so hopefully that will be, but hopefully it won't be too hot. I'm expecting a really very large event, I think. I think it's gonna be a really great year for it. And I appreciate Councilmember Bell handling both the Tillicum meeting and making it to the Gimhe celebration, and you handling both those things. I really appreciate that. That's it for me.
Thank you. Councilmember Laura Sella.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate all the presentations tonight. It was good to get up to speed on all the different topics we covered. I had a chance over the weekend to travel with my wife back to Glacier National Park, and we traveled through the Kalispell and Whitefish areas.
God's country, of course.
Yeah, where they hatch folks like, our lovely mayor out of Whitefish, Montana, from what I say here. So nice area, really friendly people, appreciated, just the folks who live back there. It was a bit of a wake-up call as I was coming back along I-90, going over the pass, and just how chaotic all of our drivers are here. A little different than it was in Montana. So on the way there, we did stop in Spokane and checked out their Riverwalk area. It's really nice. We stopped and fed the garbage goat. I don't know if folks are familiar with that, but it seems like a smart way to encourage folks to pick up trash and get it out of the area.
It's a great little piece of art.
Oh, yeah, it's a great piece of art, and there is no trash around it at all because all the kids want to pick it up and put it into this, this goat that then dumps it into a dumpster. So we should look at having a rubbish raccoon
Yeah, I like
at
it.
Edgewater Park, right?
Yeah.
Beyond that, looking forward to Thursday's dinner with the delegation from Gimhe.
Great.
And our fellow council members.
Did you see that water feature in Spokane at the entrance that the Spokane Rotary Club put together? It's a beautiful water, splash pad.
I
Just
didn't see
wet-
it. but-
Whetting your appetite.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Exactly. Yeah. Mr. Brandstatter.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This Wednesday, I'll pick up the responsibilities to be the representative on the South Sound 911 board. There's a meeting, first meeting I'll be doing that in quite a while on Wednesday morning. That I do plan to be at the Gimhe welcome dinner. That and I'm hoping to make it to the 19th farewell event, to be able to go and do that, but it kind of depends how things are going at Summerfest, where I'm engaged there with the 60 Cities International Stage that runs till 8 o'clock and some other things. So it's a question, that's more of a, can I break free to do that? And then I'll trying to get some clarification on that, about how much help there's going to be present, so that I can look to go and do that. I think that we're moving forward, and I really appreciated Mr. Vargas's work at finding out the immediate interim step to take on the indigent defense. I think it's a little over a year from now, when we're trying to deal with the 27-28 budget, is when we'll really have to come to grips with the long-term plan about that and the ramifications to the budget elsewhere in the city, to be able to go and do that. If the increases from 25 and 26 getting replicated in the 27-28 chart, that's going to be a bit of a problem. I think that I have had quite a few conversations with folks in Tillicum who are just concerned about Harry Todd Park and what is going on there. Most of the people are being reasonable, and most of the people are focused on the fact that it seems that most of the people that are causing problems are not from Lakewood, okay? But that, so the frequent question I get is there a way to keep non-Lakewoodians out of the parks, okay? And my answer is, nothing draconian. It's like trying to keep people from California moving here and buying houses and running the prices up to be able to go on off. So we'll go through and do that. But I think Summerfest is going to be be a success. I'm interested in seeing how the entertainers from Gimhe that come are received, okay, and whether that's something to go on. And also trying to rack my brain as to what kind of Lakewood entertainers would we send to Gimhe in a future year.
I got some suggestions on social media.
Yeah. Yeah, but you have to bring them back, so, yeah.
Right.
Okay, but anyway, but I'm looking forward for a busy 2 weeks.
Very good. It will be busy. Mr. Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Also looking forward to the Gimhe events. I'll be at the dinner and the farewell event. Looking forward to taking the kids to Summerfest and seeing how long we can last there. Hopefully it'll be not too hot and brutal, but yeah, it'll be fun. And then, yeah, I really appreciated the presentations today. It's, I think that when you look at, the hiring of the new police chief and really how things have gone, since with his leadership, it's really impressive. And as Mr. Brandt said, or Councilmember Boki indicated, this is really, we're at the lowest, numbers across the board pretty much that he's ever seen. And he's been here a lot longer than I am. So, that's saying that we're really tracking in the right direction. So, I thought that the presentation from the police chief was very, very welcoming, and appreciated that. I also, I like the discussion that we got from Mr. Remack about the MFTE and really what it is and kind of some of more of the kind of elaborate, parts of how it can be used and some of the advantages, disadvantages, different things like that. But I feel like it painted a better picture of it because it's kind of people toss around this term and then, I feel like especially a lot of, citizens, they come to the meetings and they don't really fully understand what it really means. All they know is that there's more multifamily and things like that. But so I thought that was really helpful to hear some of that. So yeah, the presentations were very good today. Thanks.
Councilmember Bell.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, everything that all of my fellow council members said, very busy time in Lakewood. It's fun, it's exciting, it's really just a very vibrant, has a really good feel, a good vibe of all the summer things. I was able to attend a few of the concerts recently, and those were fantastic. I think last week was Candy Shop. I think was really good.
Sure.
Yeah, so, and just looking forward to all of the things that are happening. It's great that Gimhe is going to be here, bringing K-pop to our community. I know a lot of people are very excited about that. So I'm looking forward to all the fun. And I wanted to thank our staff today, the staff today that did the presentations. They're very thorough, very informative, and I just appreciate them. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had an opportunity to attend the ALS graduation on Tuesday, and they had a luncheon instead of a dinner. They were just trying it out to see how it was going to go, and they had a lot more military involved than they had, but it was low on community partners. So they kind of trying to find a common ground so it could be more attendable and more effective for the military sector. So I will be late to Summerfest. Have another engagement. Surprise, surprise. The change of command tomorrow is at Hangar 9, and I will be attending that.
That's the one for the McCord folks?
6:40, yeah.
Okay.
Let's see. I did attend the Telecom Neighborhood Association meeting, and it was more like the candidates forum. It wasn't that well attended, but the information and the questions that were asked and the information from our council members were, potential council members were very good. But I had an opportunity to take a tour of the Tillicum neighborhood, the community center. Yeah, they have changed a lot. They're doing a lot of work and they took me out back to where they had a garden. And they have a huge garden back there and people are really taking care of it and there's going to be plenty of food for a lot of people. So I was excited about that. And for the Hall of Fame on August 8th, yours truly will be receiving her blazer.
Nice.
I didn't know that, but that's going to be part of the social. No, it's not.
Yeah, is this like Augusta you're doing?
It's like like the green jacket, right? Only mine's black. So, I was just gonna say that, I noticed that with the police report and our rates are down and everything. You hear a lot more now of other cities that have the cameras. So we are leading the way. So I'm proud of that. So that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Well, thank you very much, and thank you for standing in for me for the first hour and 20 minutes tonight. Appreciate that. This is my second study session of the day, so it's been a long one. I attended the change of command event for the Garrison Command from Colonel Park to Colonel Handke last Tuesday. So that was a good event, and I think Ms. Kraus was there as well, and it was a good event to introduce ourselves to the new leadership. I did not get to attend the change of command for the 2-2 Stryker Brigade. Did anybody else get a chance to do that? Yeah, I was too. So it would be good to eventually reach out. The last time there was a change for both leaders, we had a little lunch set up, Ms. Schumacher. I think Mr. Caulfield and I did that. So we can check their calendars and try to set up something for a few of us who could attend and see how that might work out, just to welcome them to the community. I handed him my card and it was a good introduction for sure. Today I had the Pierce Transit Board meeting started at 4 and got some good presentations about their long-range plan. Their long-range plan, as you might imagine, requires, or at least from a board perspective, would like to see service levels up at a certain level that the community, from their voluminous community surveys and their various meetings throughout the jurisdictions that they serve, the demand is more transit, but Pierce Transit is still at a level of funding that is much less than other transit agencies throughout the state. They're at 0.6 cents, and they're eventually going to go to the ballot at 0.9, which is their statutory maximum. And that's really the only way, from their perspective, they'll be able to get the service levels where the community would like to see them. So more to follow on that, and I'll keep you informed as the meetings progress, but it's something that will likely be put to the voters, maybe, certainly not this November, but probably next year sometime. So just more to follow on that. Crime stats were great from the report that I read and from the report that you received tonight. I would encourage us as kind of a show of support for the officers in the fine work that they're doing, that if you have a chance this summer to try to book a ride along, if you haven't done one in a period of time, I'm going to try to do a couple of them before the summer's out, and I'll coordinate appropriately. But it's something that worth doing if you haven't done it recently. I would encourage you to do that. In terms of the events coming up, we have a lot of them, and we've already talked about some of the duplications, but I'll try to get to everything. I've got the Gimhay dinner on the 17th for sure, and then I've got, the heck was on Friday. There's a graduation thing for operators at Pierce Transit that I'll be attending at 2, and then all the events all day Saturday, the 19th. I think I have to speak at noon at the stage. And then I think we've got, what is the other big event? There's something else coming up where I got the APC Simone Cultural Day at the Emerald Queen Casino. I've been asked to speak at that on Thursday the 24th, so I'll be doing that, and then whatever else comes up, which seems to be a lot. So lots of stuff on our plate. Thank you for your fine work. Thanks to staff for their presentations tonight. I just want to end with a few little things as I kind of go around the community. You know, there's the good, the great, and sometimes the ugly. The good and the great, Steilacoom Boulevard looks fantastic. The paving was done. I think those folks that endured that road project, the business owners and the homeowners and everything else, kudos to them. It's finally almost done. Looks really good. I got to the Colonial Plaza, you know, over the weekend, and for whatever reason, I don't know if we're having street racing issues on Friday evenings. I hear a little bit about that, but people seem to want to leave rubber tracks all over the bricks, and it seems to be getting progressively worse. And then I noticed on the back wall to the QFC at the very far end of our new park property, there's brand new fresh graffiti on that wall. So either they as a property owner need to take care of it in accordance with our code, or we need to do something, because the broken window theory is we got to attend to it sooner than later. It just gets worse. And I don't know what we can do about the tracks on the Colonial Plaza, but it starts to look kind of trashy. I don't know if it's a work crew project that might be a good thing to do, but if I were to catch a street racer, I would put them in an orange jumpsuit with a toothbrush and some bleach, and I'd have them do it for hours. That's just me. Mr. Brandstetter.
In the past, we've had some events like the Gimhe events and things like that, where there was a portion of the cost for that we've asked the council to try to fund, that particularly related to beverages.
Yes, we cannot
and,
have.
do you have an ask for that from us?
I'm gonna turn to Ms. Schumacher for that, but I think it would be appropriate for us to put something together, because we don't want our guests to have to necessarily do a no host bar, but city funds can't be used for any alcohol, as we all know. And so we have to pay for that out of pocket, but you're correct that we should maybe pony up $20 each or 25 for the guests if they. We can coordinate something like that through you. Yeah, absolutely. Just like always, Mr. Boki. Yeah. Yeah, no problem. I'll take care of you. Yeah. But good point, Mr. Brandstetter, because we gotta be copacetic with city funds. We can't use it for any alcoholic beverages. Yep.
I just wanted to go back to your point about the transportation. One of the things that they talk about at Telecom is that they only have one bus.
I'm working on
come
that. I
through there.
raised that, and the Pierce Transit folks are going to go to the next Telecom. They're gonna try to go to the next Telecom meeting and address that. But there are many requests for additional bus service throughout the service area, and it really is a resource issue. So we're working on that, but it's important for them to continue to raise that voice,
Good.
because Pierce Transit will want to try to accommodate what they can.
It's great that they're gonna go there to speak to them.
Yep, I think
Thank you.
it will. Anything else? Anybody else want to put street racers in orange jumpsuits with toothbrushes besides me?
Yeah, two.
Yeah, you got one? Use one. Well, it'll be black by the time they're done scrubbing those bricks, because if I see those guys, man, not a good thing. All right, very good. We're adjourned.